Welcome to Module 2, Concept and Process of Communication in Teaching. At the end of this module, you should be able to define communication, identify the components of communication, list and discuss the barriers and factors of communication, and mention the levels of communication. So, let's jump right into the lesson. What then is communication? Communication is an interaction that takes place between two or more living things, or between one living and another non-living thing. Yeah, that is communication. Now, communication has been broken down into several ways. All right? We are going to consider the David Ballows communication model, which talks about sender, the message, the code, which may be coding, encoding, or decoding, as well as the receiver and feedback. The communication process originates naturally from a sender. All right? The message is encoded by the brain in such a way that the brain will be able to interpret it. The same way that the central processing unit of a computer will first of all break down a message. You know, when you type a letter, it goes into a processing unit where the message is encoded, all right? And it is now transferred into other components until it is decoded in a way that the receiver will be able to understand it. So you have the message which gets encoded, all right? We have the sender that sends the message. The message, after encoding, is interpreted, and using the channel, which may be face-to-face, it may be through radio, it may be verbal, it may be non-verbal, it may be a group communication, it may be a mass communication, it may be interpersonal, intrapersonal. We'll look at each of these areas. Then the message is decoded by the receiver, and the only way that the sender would appreciate that the message has been understood by the receiver is to give a feedback. All right? And of course, you have to consider that noise have negative impact on both the channel of communication as well as the message itself. And it will also impact the feedback from that message. All right? Now, from the last diagram, we would appreciate that we have different components of communication. You have the stimulus, all right? The stimulus could be my wanting to take this lesson with you. That's the stimulus. Then we have the source or the sender, which is me sending a message to you. All right? The message itself in this situation is discussing communication with you. All right? It is a lecture. It is an instruction. It could be, a discussion with you and your friends, or you're teaching your class. All right? That is the message. The medium I am using is using the medium of technology to send this message to you. All right? So the medium in which the message is being expressed, it could be oral, it could be written, it could be non-verbal. In this case, it is verbal, it is oral, right? Now, the channel that transfers the message. Now, I am using the internet to get this message across to you. You are the receiver or the decoder of my message. And of course, how do I get to know that you understand this message is when I ask you questions during your in-course assessment or your exams, and you're able to score good marks. And of course, the noise factor, which we are going to talk about and look at the impact it has on communication. Now let's talk about noise. Noise can be in various forms, right? It could be physical, like I am recording this lesson in the dead of the night because I do not want any background noise from my neighborhood to disrupt this lesson. All right? So it could be from so many sources. When you are communicating, it could be from, the students making noise and disturbing the class. It could be from workers, it could be teachers. Noise can come from tools, from vehicles, from, if a market is located beside your school, for instance, the noise of the market is going to impact on the teaching and learning, and it will continue to constitute a barrier, to communicating with your students. Those are physical noises. Now, we could have psychological noise, all right, which are emotional issues. You are trying to teach your students. The student is looking at you, all right? He's not making noise, but he's not listening to you. Why? Because he has just suffered serious beating at home. Or it may be that on his way to school, something happened and he could no longer find his bag. And all he's thinking about is, I am dead today. What will I tell my mommy? What will I tell my daddy? All right? That is psychological noise. It could happen to the teacher also. A teacher has just lost the parents, and there's no way that the teacher is going to be 100% effective in that class, So it constitutes a noise from the sender. Noise could be physiological, all right? Physiological. For instance, you are taking your class and your stomach begins to rumble, and you're like, if I don't round up this class in the next 3 minutes, I am going to poop on my body. At the same time, you don't want to end the class, at a point that it will not make sense to your learners, to your students. So you want to keep up to the end of that particular lesson and then take your leave to visit the gents. That is physiological. You could be hungry. You could be thirsty. All right? All these are physiological distraction, natural distraction. All right? And they also constitute barriers to communication. Now, you could also have semantic noise. All right? You want to call choice. You said our source of communication. All right? It is a barrier. You want to pronounce chicken. You say seeking, and your children are like, okay, seeking. We need to consult the dictionary to find out what seeking means. It is a barrier to communication. Semantic noise. It could be grammatical in nature. All right. Now you wrote on the chalkboard fruits, flies, like a banana. The students could interpret it as fruit flies like a banana and begin to ask themselves, do bananas fly? Can fruit fly? All right. Now, because you have missed out important punctuation, all right, it is going to confuse your learners. Now, if you had said fruit flies, comma, like a banana, then it will make sense to them. Okay, fruit flies like banana. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. That is a grammatical noise, which would constitute a barrier to communication. Then you could also have phonological, phonological noise. You want to call show, you are calling soap. You want to call kissing, you say kussing. All right. Apologies to my people from some parts of the southwest Nigeria. So all these different kinds of noises constitute barriers to communication. They could, because if the source is wrong, then the perception is going to be wrong, the feedback is going to be wrong, and the entire communication system is going to break down. All right. Now, what are the levels of communication? It could be intrapersonal, interpersonal, or group. Now, you may be wondering, oh, how intrapersonal? Does it mean that you talk to yourself? All right. If you look at this woman here, this beautiful woman here, right? She's on her feet smiling. But at the same time, it is possible that she's experiencing a very serious menstrual pain, which she's just struggling to hide, and it could impact on her communication or her interaction or her discussion. All right. So these are intrapersonal stuffs. Emotional disturbance is intrapersonal. All right. Physiological disturbance is intrapersonal. Your thought process that, oh, I need to get out of this place. I need to get to the bank before 2 o'clock, before the bank shuts their doors to customers. I just need to get out of school. Those are intrapersonal communication. How about interpersonal? That is easy. You have, 2 or more people discussing, sending messages, receiving messages, and giving feedback, and communication continues. Then how about group? Group can come in various forms. All right. You could have small or large group communication, like the one you have in your classroom. You are communicating with a number of pupils. All right. And depending on the size of the class, or if you pull all the students together in an assembly, it becomes a large group communication. All right. Now you can have public communication, as well as mass communication, the use of television, the use of radio, the use of newspaper to reach millions and millions of recipients or receivers. So thank you very much. That is the end of that particular module. I'll see you in the next class.